So, Toni, I will actually start with you. Can you just tell me a little bit about where viewers will meet Margot at the beginning of episode one versus they will see her by episode nine?
Well, interestingly, it's the very same moment.
Yeah,
It kind of bookends the story. Margot almost inadvertently becomes a bit of a spokesperson for girls and for the power and for taking it seriously and realizing that it is a lot of change that's going to occur, and to protect the growth and the evolution, and is really hoping for it to become helpful in this revolution of bringing our culture back into balance. She kind of steps up in her career, and at that moment, I guess something has occurred, without giving too much away, something has occurred which has really kind of exposed just how steeped she is in this new change. And she's grappling with how it has affected her family, how it's affected her kids and their relationships, how it's exposed her personally, and how it will affect her career. So there's a lot going on in that moment, for sure.
Absolutely. And for you, John, I wanted to know, and just staying on that theme of just superpower, can you tell me, how did bringing Rob to life kind of help you tap into your own personal superpower, if you will?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I mean, Rob is a type of role that I don't usually get. Somebody who's closer to me,
sweet, sensitive, supportive,
nurturing,
incredible, awesome, amazing,
great dude, vulnerable. I usually don't get to play these roles, so it was great to have a role reversal where I'm the man behind the powerful woman, and I'm cool with a powerful woman, and it turns me on. So I love playing that role, especially in a show that was women forward. It was women producers, women directors, women writers. All the leads were female. It was an incredible environment. It was nurturing, collaborative. Yeah, I loved it.
I love that. Well, I have to say I'm a fan of you both, so thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
First things first, I actually want to start with you, Auli'i. You all have inherited, your characters have inherited the superpower against your will, if you will. Can you share what is the biggest superpower that you learned about yourself by bringing her to life?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think Joss learns that her privilege is a power. I think she learns that what she's grown up with, having a political mother and a supportive father, puts her, she initially thinks that it's the worst thing in the world, right? She's like, oh, my mom is so irritating. Why won't you just talk to me? And instead she's wearing $800 shoes and completely forgets that is a privilege. And I think that she realizes towards the end of the series that her mom, and therefore Joss, has the ability to change the world politically. And what does that look like? As a young person, to see the world changing around you and becoming politically active, that was something that was new for me, is truly making change and realizing that it might start as a personal issue and feeling like it's an emotion, but to turn it into policy is really where the change lies. So I think Joss goes on an emotional journey of realizing the importance of political power.
Yeah, I love that. And Edwina, I just want to know, because your character plays the chief of staff, Helen plays the chief of staff. So talking about that policy, with this series exploring a world where women have all the power, how would you say that this should be sort of a reflection or art imitating life in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have two young daughters. I have London Joy, who's 3, and Victoria Rose, who is 6. And Victoria Rose just last week announced to me that she is going to be the first African-American woman president. And she was and that she wants me to enroll her in president school so she can be prepared for that. And I mean, tears are coming to my eyes. We're reading this book that Denai Guerrera gave to her when she was little called, it was all about Michelle Obama. I look up to Michelle Obama. And so she's reading the book and learning to read. But I just saw how, wow, like my little Black girl at this young age is able to grow up in a world where we have new models that are accessible, you know, and that we have an African-American female vice president now. And that all happened while we were filming The Power, you know? So I just love that we're in a time where history is being made and the younger generation is able to see it. And my hope is that our show, The Power, is going to be a part of that political history and a part of that dynamic and even gender-based history as well, that lets the girls all over the world know that they have agency, that they have power, and that they really can be whomever they want.
Absolutely. And lastly, for you, Halle, in a sense, your character, Auli'i, she's able to find her voice thanks to this newfound power. Can you tell me, where will viewers find her in episode 1 versus episode 9?
Wow. Yeah, at first you see in Auli'i in episode 1, she's mute. She doesn't have confidence. She has no confidence within her self-esteem, her body, her voice, within saying what she wants. You see her kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, like a egg almost, like, you know, stuck in their shell and don't want to come out at all. They just want to stay in their shell. But then by episode 9, she's like out of her shell and she's fully grown and matured. She has confidence more. She has confidence in her body and her voice and speaking out and telling her story to inspire other girls. So I would say that's a whole difference between episode 1 to episode 9. And she just goes on this remarkable journey. Yeah. And honestly, it's so beautiful to watch.
Absolutely. Well, thank y'all for your time and congratulations on the series.
Yeah, and thank you for all that Shadow and Act does to support our stories. Thank you.
Sure.
Heather, I would love to start with you because we are exploring a world where women hold all the power. Can you tell me why this is something that should be represented when it comes to like art imitating life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's always been a conversation about Black women having power and it feeling like a threat, or we need to hide it or protect it or navigate in a really difficult way. But this show kind of celebrates, in particular me, the Nigerian character, having power, having agency, and finding her own voice and story. So it's super duper important because as an actor, that's our life. Our life is about navigating power and how to show it. And this show really celebrates that. So I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and just continuing to stay on this topic of superpowers, Toheeb, please tell me, how did being a part of this series really help you tap into your own personal superpower?
I think one of the joys of telling the Tunde part of this story is, you know, like how you use your platform and like that, like power being loads of different ways. Like it could be political power or physical power, or you know, like the power of the media is Tunde's power. And I think as Tunde's figuring out how to use his platform, I'm figuring out how to use mine as an artist, you know, and so I think that's been the joy of his storyline, is, you know, feeding that information back to me and vice versa.
Yeah. And then just lastly, for both of y'all, can you kind of just elaborate a little bit on where we meet your characters in episode 1 versus where we will meet them by episode 9?
Wow. Tunde at the start of episode 1 is on top of the world. At the end of episode 9 is at his emotional and physical, you know, what is it like? The trough, like he's at his peak, and then at the end of episode 9 he's at his trough, definitely.
I think at the start of episode 1, Ndudi's excited, questioning what the power is, but also trying to figure out her agency and her own voice, and by the end she's found that voice, man, in a really beautiful way.
Yeah,
I love that.
The opposite, Johnny.
Yeah, y'all are opposite. Well, thank y'all so much for your time.
I
and
really
congratulations
appreciate it.
on the
Thank you.
series. Yeah, I actually want to start with you because this series explores a world where women have all the power. How would you say that, although that's not like often represented in real life, why this is something that should be art imitating life, if you will?
Yeah, I think that, you know, in the 3 years it's taken us to make this show, like it's just become really, really relevant. I think that it's really cathartic to see women gaining bodily autonomy, and, you know, it's very timely and thought-provoking.
Absolutely. And Eddie, if you had to describe where Bernie is in the beginning of the series versus where he is by the end, what would you say about his journey?
I think he's scared at the beginning and he's terrified at the end.
Absolutely. And then for you, Zrinka, I just think in bringing this story to life, how would you say that your character has taught you about the superpower that lies within yourself?
She taught me that it's never too late to change your life and your position if you're not happy with. One of the things I love the most, she's a natural born survivor. So as low as she can be, as empty she can be and live her life, there's always that little spark that never died that will bring her back. So yeah, that's something I will use in my life.
Absolutely. And then just lastly, for all 3 of you, because we're honing in on superpowers, if there's one superpower or quality that you wish that you could have, what would that be? And we can just go in the same order. So we can start with you, Ria.
I would love to be able to fly. I used to have dreams that I could fly, and they were really good. So yeah.
I love that.
I'm a father of 4 teenagers. I think the superpower I need the most is patience.
Ooh.
I think if I could have more patience, I think I'd be a lot happier.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of have all the power I need, and I took it since I was a kid, since the first step I took. So yeah, I don't feel like I need any superpower.
Hey, I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. We all should approach life like that. And so thank y'all so much for your time today. And I really enjoyed the first few episodes of the series I've been able to screen. So hats off.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Naomi, I actually want to start with you because as the author of the Power novel, what was the journey like bringing this to Prime Video?
Oh my God. Well, it's been an extraordinary journey and a longer journey than we expected, given that we had a global pandemic in the middle, which was not my favorite thing. One of my best stories about this is that towards the end of 2019, people were still asking in the writer's room, do you think that if women developed the power to electrocute people, they would really close the schools? Like, how would that even work? But, you know, where would the kids go? And so, yes, it's been a journey in which I feel that we have all now learned how it would work on a global level if a global type event like this took place. So that's been exciting. But yes, in general, this has been an incredible adventure, actually, doing this. I've found such a wonderful home for my story with Amazon Prime, who have been incredibly supportive through all of this when we had to do reshoots because, you know, COVID things and past change. They have just been with us every step of the way. So Jen Salke and her team at Amazon Studios, I sat down with them in 2018, pitched the TV show. Jen and I, by the end of that meeting, were both crying together about what we could, you know, what entertainment can hope to do in the global struggle for justice, which is, you know, sometimes not much except give some like solace and some, you know, distraction, which is perfectly valid. But in this case, I hope that we've made something that really speaks to some important stuff, as well as being really fun.
Absolutely. And speaking of important stuff, I think it's so like noteworthy to note that this series is coming out on the final day of Women's History Month. I think that's like so amazing. And so for you, Tim, I just wanted to know, why was it important to like really start this series off with teens who exhibit this power? They're discovering that they have like this superpower. Why was that age frame important for you all to hone in on?
That's a good question. I think it roughly, I mean, given this is a change in evolution, and puberty is probably the time in our lives as humans where our bodies undergo the most amount of change. So it makes sense. I'm sure this is what you were thinking, right? That, you know, that's when bodies would start exhibiting this new organ. So yeah, that's why it starts with teens. And also I think there's, in terms of storytelling, there's a sort of innocence and an openness to possibilities of life before all of that gets shut down by adult experience, that makes it very compelling as a viewer to sort of see and experience that change in a body through those characters at that age.
I mean, I would also say part of the reason it's that way in the book is because I am so inspired by young women.
Right.
Because I have experienced personal liberation in my own life through the actions of women who are younger than me, who live in the world that's created by feminists of my generation. You know, for example, like there are fat activists, body positive activists who have really changed how I feel about my own body, who have taught me to be able to, you know, inhabit my body in a different and really beautiful way. And you know, on some level, when the younger women give the older women the power in the show, that's what is happening. That's what I feel. It's like, got to listen to the young people who are experiencing the world that we've created for the first time, and to understand what they're angry about and what they're trying, the new possibilities they can perceive. They're
looking at it fresh.
Right,
yeah.
Right. I think that I could go on about this.
Yes, and I could listen to you go on about this forever. Thank you all so much for your time today. Have a good one. And so one thing that I love about this and wanted to note is that the power actually comes out on the final day of March, which is Women's History Month, as you know, which I think is so on brand. And so, Raelle, I actually want to start with you about, why was it so important to start this series off at that adolescence kind of teen age with them discovering their superpower, if you will?
Well, Naomi Alderman's novel that the show is based on created that, and I think the reason Naomi chose to do that is because when you're a teen girl, there's so much already changing inside of your body hormonally. It's almost like, I remember being a teen girl and feeling like I was like an alien to myself, you know, just that, you know, one day you have boobs and, you know, they're like, and you're having these sort of emotional outbursts and urges. So it's a really volatile time in a woman's life. And I think it's therefore even more heightened to add a really intense, potentially lethal power to a young girl who's going through all of those things.
Absolutely. And speaking of superpowers, Jane, in what ways did bringing the series to life bring out some of your own superpowers that might live within you?
That's a really good question. I don't know whether they're superpowers, but I think patience, and this one is something which I honestly am quite a patient person, and I think this one, because of the length of time, and we had COVID and it's a big show, there were many obstacles to overcome when you're executing something of this scale and this epic nature around the world. So I think the superpower was determination and patience to get it made, and holding on to the mission, which was, you know, this has got to be the best version of itself, because this is a story that we need to tell for, you know, young people around the world, not just girls and women, everybody.
Yes. And lastly, for you, Naomi, I wanted to know, just, you know, again, this is focused around women finding and honing in on their superpowers, and this is a world where women have the power. How would you say that is, although it's not always accurately represented in the real world, how do you say that's kind of really like art imitating life, if you will?
I do think you see these sort of waves of change, right, in the world and amongst people. And when I look at my niece, for example, and the way she holds herself in the world, I feel like she's far more confident and far more outspoken about things than perhaps I was even. And I felt like I was being very outspoken at the time, but you see these changes happening, and I look at her and I feel like she's got some sort of superpower in that she's just so sure what she thinks and she's so engaged with the world. So you do see these things out there, and I do feel like there is brilliant change happening in the world, but there's also a huge backlash happening at the moment against what felt like a really great load of uprising around Me Too and so on. And we really just want this show to be the backlash against the backlash. So we want women to feel empowered by this show and to feel that sort of power within themselves.
Absolutely. Well, that definitely resonated with me while watching. So thank you, ladies, for your time.